LGBTQIA+.
If you have always identified with a gender from birth, you never understand the feeling that comes with it, and you don't quite get it.
One day I'll feel very masculine, and one day I'll feel very feminine, and I'll just take it from there.
If you're a stranger or we've just met, don't ask me about my genitals. Basic rule.
It is mostly kind of phobia through ignorance rather than through pure hatred.
I'm Ann-Marie McCormack, and this podcast is about gender. I think it's very confusing now because there seems to be so many terms. When I was growing up, you just knew where you stood. Give me a couple of the terms that are currently out there about gender and what they mean.
I mean, do you want us to tell you the terms that we apply to ourselves?
If I throw some terms at you and you tell me what you think they mean. Okay, transgender.
Well, transgender just means that your gender that you most align yourself with isn't the same as the gender you were assigned according to your sex at birth.
Yeah, it's a performance artist that I follow, Travis Albanza, who's been in the news a lot lately. They described it as the doctor looks at what's between your legs at birth and goes, that's what you are. And then a few years later you go, no.
Transgender is a very broad term for just not being what you've told you you are.
Okay, so pangender, what does that mean?
Pangender means...
pan means all gender. It's someone who's like, I just want to be everything, I guess. But I don't know.
Something you need to understand about being non-binary or non-gender conforming is that there are a lot of terms that fall under that bracket that mean similar things but are just more accurately assigned to certain feelings. So they're not really that important in terms of like to understand them because they're more for personal use.
Oh, so is there a difference now in terms of whether it's a gender thing or a sexuality thing?
I would say that sexuality and gender are completely different things.
Definitely.
The best way we had it described as was sexuality is who you go to bed with, but gender is who you go to bed as.
They're not connected in like almost any sense.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, definitely.
So to give an example, like not to offend anyone or bring anyone to it, but some people associate transgender women as being gay. That's the association that they make automatically, which is not true. You can be a transgender woman and be attracted to anyone. They're not connected whatsoever.
Being a transgender person doesn't affect whether or not you're homosexual. It just affects the label that you use. You're born being attracted to a certain type of people, and you're born being a certain person, and those terms change depending on your understanding of it.
Yeah, obviously, like before I transitioned, I was a female in brackets, but I was attracted to men, and I've transitioned now knowing that I'm a guy, I'm a male, and I live as a gay man. That's what I am. I'm attracted to men predominantly. So I term myself as gay or occasionally pansexual if someone else comes along that I'm like, yeah, maybe I would. But it's entirely a gender is who I am, sexuality is who I want to be with thing. It's not a connection at all, really. It's, yeah.
So, F to M, what does that mean?
Female to male.
That's me. Hey.
And M to F, obviously, is
Male to female.
F to X.
That's me.
That's me.
What's F to X?
M to X.
Right, you say F
So
to X.
F to X is I was born female, but I assign myself as non-binary or non-gendered. So X means not male or female.
Okay, and you?
I'm exactly the same, but male to X.
Right, okay. The term transvestite, I'm going to
That's
you.
a little bit. It's not a term that I like because it's usually associated with quite a sexual aspect. Most people associate like transgender people as transvestites, which is not the same thing, and they sometimes paired together, which is not really. Mm-hmm. Would you say it's not?
Yeah, I think the thing I saw for it was that transvestite is someone who dresses in the clothes of the opposite gender for sexual pleasure, or for personal pleasure, whereas transgender is this is the person you are. There's not
the suffix vestite means that there's some sort of sexual payoff. It's not about identity, and it's more about fetish. So it's not a term that people like really in the trans community, because it means that people are expecting that you fetishize like who you are.
Because my understanding of it was always that it was a male who liked dressing as a woman but was not gay, who still, I've met quite a few transvestites who were married and still had a, sexual relationship with their wife. So I haven't met so many females who dress as men, but I never realised there was this fetishization, if there is such a word.
Well, usually when people would dress in clothes that are traditionally considered for the opposite sex, you'd call that cross-dressing. Cross-dressers is what you would usually term. The term transvestite, or like drag or cross-dressing are the more accepted terms. Transvestite, it doesn't really have anything to do with sexuality, and it definitely doesn't have anything to do with being trans.
Yeah, the thing I get a lot when I'm walking down the street is yes queen, yes slay, which is normally associated with drag queens. And I'm like, I mean, thank you very much, but I'm not a drag queen. I don't perform for money. Well, I don't perform for money. To clarify.
So you, of all people, have accepted that there's a range of terms. Now, do you get confused yourselves?
I do sometimes, but I'm slightly older than you guys, and I transitioned kind of when I was quite young, so I've always just been like, oh, like I'm trans, I'm on the side of this community, but it's not like the biggest thing about myself. But I try and learn, I try and keep up with like the new kids and what a lot of them are saying, because I feel that like maybe one day a term will come along that fits me better than what I think I know I am. But I think it's just one of those things that once you're in what's termed as the queer community, you see these terms come up a lot and your friends identify with them and you just kind of learn that way. But sometimes
so do you think you're just gathering them because suddenly it becomes popular, and do you think social media has had a part in this?
I think social media has a huge part in making people more confident, and also making people more aware. I knew that being trans was a thing my whole life, because I grew up in a very open-minded city, but I knew I wasn't a boy. And it wasn't until I met someone who was non-binary and like went on the internet and looked up what it was and read it and was like, yeah, that's me. And like was like, oh, okay, cool. If I didn't have the internet, I still wouldn't know.
And that was with me. I've spent the last year and a half basically trying to figure out who I am as a gender, because it is really confusing. And then when I met Kai, they were kind of like, well, I mean, you're not just a boy or a girl. And you're also not just gender fluid. Like there's all these in-betweens, and sort of you put together your own gender identity by how you feel. And that's, at the end of the day, it's about being comfortable in how you identify.
Were you confused before anyway?
Growing up, I was always a tomboy. And I never really felt comfortable being a girl, or not even so much as being a girly girl, but being, with all the girls. I felt more comfortable being with all the guys. But I was happy. It's really hard to explain, isn't it? I was happy being called a girl, but it itched under my skin, I guess. It's hard to say.
I would imagine, like, for George, like, because I would imagine, like, when you were younger, any association with being a girl was completely uncomfortable.
I was such a textbook case. Like, they said that at the gender clinic. They were just like, you literally have the textbook story. And I was like, yep, that's me.
Yeah.
So obviously I come at it from a completely different angle. I've just gone from female to male straight over. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I think it's kind of weird because, like, obviously I'm not about to be like, you can't use that term, it's not real and made up. But there's such a, like, I can understand that from an outsider's perspective, coming in, being like, what the heck does that mean?
I think people need to understand as well, like...
Yeah, I'd say there's basics that people need to understand from an outside perspective, and that's that, like, there's male, there's female, and you can have in between. And a lot of people can just use the term non-binary to be in between, meaning not in the two binary set, like genders or sexes or whatever you want to call it.
It doesn't really matter. Like when I introduce myself to people and they don't know much about gender, I don't really care that they don't know. I just want them to respect what I've said to them. Like, I don't care if you don't know what non-binary is, but if I tell you to call me by a certain name, just call me by a certain name. It's common decency.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't really talk about it because there's no need for people to change my pronouns. I prefer to go by M, but that's just my shortened name, you know?
So do you think you are more confused now or less confused by the fact that there is so many options?
Less confused.
What about you two?
I personally would say more. Only because as I grew up, I didn't I knew that I didn't want to be a female, so I didn't fit in the transgender category. And I knew I didn't want to be, like, male all the time, so I didn't understand where I was in the situation, so I wasn't fitting in that aspect of it or that aspect of it, so I was somewhere in between. And then I realised it wasn't about being male or female, it was about how I wanted to present myself in general and how I wanted to feel confident in what I was doing. Nothing to do with gender at all. It was more of an art for me, an expression, I guess.
It was more about perception than inner feelings for you.
Yeah. And I think for me, because I'm so solid in who I am, it's not really confusion. It's just a kind of like, yeah, you do you. Like, live your best selves. If those terms apply to you, go for it. It's none of my business. Like,
as a gender fluid person, every day is a confusing mess. Every day I wake up and know myself less than before.
Hey, well, okay. I think, is there any terms that you just fire them at me? Name all the terms that are out there at the moment. Just shoot, all of you, whatever comes into your head.
I would say the most used terms in terms of like non-binary, because I know a lot of non-binary people, are gender fluid, pangender, agender, demigender, bigender. Those are pretty much the main ones. And
any to add?
Genderqueer.
I'd say those are the main ones. There's also like the really niche dark depths of Tumblr ones.
And demi-boy and demi-girl.
Yeah. Could someone explain that to me, actually, because I've not heard demi.
Hello.
Hello.
My time to shine. It's so you've got your assigned gender at birth, which we're all very familiar with, and you're not fully gender fluid. You don't wake up confused as to who you are one day or the next, but you're also not distinctly girl, but you're definitely not, well, for me, being demigirl, you're not distinctly girl, but you're not also a guy by any stretch of the imagination.
Demi-boy and demi-girl is saying, I mostly identify as a boy, but not completely.
Yeah.
Or I mostly identify as a girl, but not completely. And it usually, at least most people I've met, it's more of a term that they use personally.
Yeah.
It doesn't change their pronouns, and it's not usually something they talk about. It's just something that they know within themselves.
So,
yes.
So you're saying you're demigirl.
Yes.
Does lesbian come into this at all?
No.
Now, is that offensive for me to ask you?
No.
Because, like when I was younger, you would see what would typically be quite a male-looking female who was saying, I'm lesbian and I'm into being with women. So that was very clear, very easy. Like you'd see a male gay who said, I'm gay, but he might be quite feminine in his outward expression. So where are gay and lesbian now?
So...
Lesbian.
Well, I'd like you to answer.
As far as sort of butch-looking females, etc., I mean, I've done both. I've done the really pretty girl, Cosmo girl type of thing, and I've also done the completely binds chest, dresses as a guy, and Kai will say to me, "You look like a butch lesbian today, and you're rocking it." I
get that as well from friends. Great, thanks.
Thanks. I don't want to say it, but it's almost like a stereotype of gender and sexuality that women will look butch if they're attracted to women, and men will look a bit femme. Nowadays, there are all these different terms for people who, the way they express their gender and sexuality. So you'll have femme lesbians and you'll have the butch lesbians, and they will identify as
lipstick lesbian.
Yeah, lipstick lesbian. Sorry, thank you, darling. And that's all up to who you are as a person. But again, that has no bearing on your sexuality at all. I could just as easily turn around dressed in my lovely flannel like I am today and say I'm straight as a pole.
Yeah.
I think it also comes down to that idea of gender expression versus identity.
Yes.
Like, I always know that I'm pretty much male, but some days I describe myself as quite soft. Like, I'm like a poetry flower loving, floral wearing. It depends on what you want to show yourself outwardly to the world as and what you are. That's quite interesting. Because it's like, my best friend Kasha, who couldn't be here today, she is a butch lesbian. Like, she's butcher than I am. Like, she could take me in a fight. And but she still identifies as a woman mostly, and she is attracted to women, but she's still like, yeah, I'm mostly female. That's what I am. Like, I am girl. I just don't dress like it. And it's down to that, like, your expression of who you are and how you dress, and how that doesn't define what you identify as. Like, I know so many like cis guys, which is same gender as they were assigned at birth, who are beautiful and express themselves like, absolutely not just me being like gay lost, but like beautiful men, and they all like, and some of them will wear like skirts and dresses and all that stuff, but they're still like, no, I'm a dude. It's like Kurt Cobain and all that. He wore dresses his whole life, but it's still like, I'm a guy. Like, also goes down to what really, like, why are we assigning clothes genders?
So is it, I mean, looking around at you, Connor, you definitely come out, you win the prize for the most creative dresser this morning. So is it, oh, sorry, Kai.
Okay.
And like, you've got students out of bed at like 9 in the morning.
I know.
You can't expect wonders.
Well, your hair is always very creative, let's face it. Every week it's a different colour. Is it a creative expression for you as well,
Absolutely,
do you think?
Yeah. Whether it's male or female, or whatever I want to present as.
So some days you dress as a male and some days as a female. So what determines that?
It's day to day. I could wake up in one morning and think, oh, I mean, I'm never going to be extremely masculine because I'm a tiny little blonde, like, male associated boy. But one day I'll feel very masculine, blah, 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 blah. And one day I'll feel very feminine, and I'll just take it from there.
Okay.
I think it's so hard for most cisgender people to understand feelings of dysphoria and like a feeling, an awareness of your gender. Like, I'll always say to people, it's like, I'm having a boy day today, and they'll be like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I woke up and I was like, boy. And they're like, I don't understand. Or like, whenever I'll wear femme clothes, like I'll wear dresses or skirts, and everyone will be like, you're having a girly day? And I'm like, no, masculine. I just wanted to wear a skirt today. Is that okay with you?
No, but we will get a group text saying, guys, Kai's wearing a dress. Get into town now.
So, what offends you? What terms offend you?
Oh, we're about to be like,
yeah.
Whoever's hearing this is probably like, millennial snowflakes.
Well, I'm talking about purely gender here.
I think, like, obviously it's not really a term that's ever used to talk to me because it's always used to derogatise transgender women, but the term tranny, it's just like, shut up. Like, that's just an instant, please stop.
Can I ask if someone is transgender and they use that
if
word...
they reclaim it, like, it's our word to reclaim, go for it.
Do you
it's
feel
your
that
word.
that's...
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I feel like it's quite empowering.
When it's hurled at you in the street, it's just like...
Yeah, it depends how someone says it.
Yeah.
On that note, when people use... Sorry to say this, but when people use the word faggot to describe anyone who's, like, not an ideal image of what they are, or someone who's different to what they, you know.
We just say the F word in our house, don't we?
Yeah, I can't say that word without like having a visceral reaction.
People have been saying it around me all my life, so it's to take it back, it feels quite powerful.
And actually, the word queer has been now re-embraced because, again,
stole that one back.
This was always a term that was considered quite derogatory and nasty to say to people. So is that okay now?
Well, I mean, if you come at me and be like, what's up, you queero, then I'm going to be offended, even if I have reclaimed the word, because it's about intention. The word queer is a really beautiful word that has a really beautiful meaning, which is why the community was like, we want that one.
Yeah, I think it's because like the term queer tends to describe everything that's outside of the sexual gender art, like mainstream norm. It's all that weird.
An umbrella term.
It's all the beautiful weird queer art and politics and literature and everything that we get from it. It's like, yeah, that's what I'm in. That's what I am. So I'll use it for myself. But I think if someone like came at me in the street and was like, "Oh, are you queer?" and all that stuff, I'll be like, no.
Because that word, if you think about it, queer means odd, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I didn't know what it meant. I thought it meant weird. I literally thought it meant something just slightly off, and I thought it was a beautiful word to describe it.
It's a beautiful word.
Just vocally, just saying the word queer is very pleasing to say. And I just thought it meant a bit odd, and then I found out it was this umbrella term, and I was like, fair.
Yeah, I think what you said, Kai, about intention, it's entirely about what people intend for it to mean, and you can tell a lot by inflection. Like, some people say stuff to me, and it's out of a genuine place of curiosity, and I'm a bit like, okay, bit offish, but that's fine, you're just asking me this because you want to learn. Whereas other people, you can always tell when someone intends to offend or hurt you.
Yeah.
And it's that I'm never offended by a lot of stuff. I don't get offended easily. I have no realms in which to get offended easily. Like I'm just like, cool, whatever. Shrug,
the only thing that, regardless of intention, will always make me slightly irritated is when people will inquire about my physical biology or whether or not I'm going to change it.
Oh, no,
have you had the op yet?
Which one?
Why do you need to know that?
Also, why is it any of your business? If you're a stranger or we've just met, don't ask me about my genitals. Basic rule.
Or buy me a drink
to anyone.
Unless you want to see them. Unless you want to see them for flirtatious reasons, don't ask me. The only reason.
Yeah. The only reason would be like, do I need to go on birth control?
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's
okay, so LGBTQ.
LGBT.
Let's start again. LGBTQ plus.
LGBTQIA plus.
Oh my goodness, God. You've added a new
lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual plus.
Or agender sometimes.
No, it's asexual.
I just tend to term it the gays.
Or just queer, which is a lot easier.
And then the plus.
The plus is, if you want to see the full acronym,
it's
26 letters.
It's the alphabet.
It's pretty much.
Some repeated letters, though.
Yeah, there's some repeated letters. But the main acronym before the plus covers the main basis. Like, all the other ones can fall under those ones, which is why they're the main ones.
Okay. So when you enter the community...
I mean, it's not like
do people instruct each other? Because, Connor, you sound like you don't know all these terms. You're learning.
I've had to talk to a lot of people to try and find out where I am placed in this, in it all. Do you know, like...
And do you feel you have to be placed within?
You don't have to. You don't even have to label yourself whatsoever. You can just be yourself.
Being non-binary in a place where there are lots of other people questioning their gender is so easy because people don't care about labels and it's very much about come as you are.
But there is a massive issue with transphobia in the LGB sexuality side of it.
And
I think
biphobia.
Exactly. And I honestly think it's because if you have always identified with a gender from birth, you never understand the feeling that comes with it and you don't quite get it. But I find that in the queer community there is an issue with it, but it's transphobia of ignorance, never of pure hatred, apart from like the Republican gays on Twitter who are like, we don't want the tea anymore, and it's like, well, tough shit, we're still here. But
I think, to be honest, we've covered most of what we need to cover as a group. What I'd like to do now is sort of get more into your own story. If I met you anywhere, I would just see a guy. And yet you weren't born male.
I wasn't natally male, I was natally female, which was,
So tell me about that journey and how that girl decided that she wanted to be a boy, or was it like that? Tell me about it.
I mean, I think from when I was really little, I kind of like, my parents never forced anything on me that I didn't want to do. I was always allowed to do, not whatever I want within a context, but kind of whatever interest I pursued, they'd let me do it. And from kind of the age of 3, I was being asked like, oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I was always like, I'm going to be a boy because that's what I am. I'm just going to be doing my thing. And I never really saw myself as anything but until kind of primary school. And they say that at 8 is the age that gender difference registers in the brain. And I was like, oh, heck, okay, I'm not a boy. I'm not what's considered a boy. So I kind of went on through that age. I was really tomboyish. And then I kind of, when I turned 13, 14 and puberty came into full effect, I was like, whoa, hold it, like, hold up. And I kind of, from then onwards, I started to socialise male. I kind of cut all my hair off. I did the standard, like, binding the chest and doing all that kind of stuff through secondary school, which was a really rough time because no one quite accepted it. And then about 16, 17, I started the medical process of what's called medical transition. And now at 22, kind of here I am, really. So, yeah.
And you look so, well, you are that boy. Yeah. Now, how did your parents feel? Because obviously, as a parent myself, and I have 2 sons, you know, if I gave birth to 2 sons or a daughter, then I expect them to carry on that way.
Yeah.
So it must have been hard for them, or did you consider that at the time?
I always considered it. Like, I always had it in the back of my head. And I think that's why, like, my mum and my dad both struggled at first. They were both like, what in the heck is going on? Because we're from a relatively, like, conservative background. So it was always like, what the heck is this? What's happening? My mum came around to it more because she said to me, I'd rather have a living son than a dead daughter. Because at one point it got so bad that I was considering taking my own life. I was like, that's it. If I can't do this, I can't live. It's not functional for me. And it caused like a lot of depression and anxiety and stuff. But my mum and my dad have always been, you've got to, like they always let me do whatever I want growing up, and they're always like, at the end of the day, you've got to be happy in your life, and you've got to be living the life that you want to live, because otherwise it's 70, 80 years, it's a long time to be unhappy. So it was always very, very kind of accepting. There was some stuff they still struggled with. Pronouns were a big thing until I started on the testosterone, and all of a sudden my voice dropped and I was hairy, and I was like, yeah. And they were like, fine, cool, we get it now.
So your name?
My name.
What was your, or do you want to even?
I don't. No,
that's fine.
So it's always something I'll acknowledge, and I'm like, yeah, it's on my national insurance card, and it's on that kind of stuff, and it's something I know is my past, and I'm not going to try and erase it. But if someone's always known me as George, they don't really have a need to know my old name.
Absolutely, I think
it's not like you walk up to a married woman and go, "Oh, you're married. What was your maiden name?" Like, it's stuff like that.
That's right. That's a good point. That's a very relevant point.
It's just one of those things. I think my grandparents struggle with it more, but I think it's a very generational thing. And they're nothing but accepting and loving, and I know they're doing it from the right place.
So it got that serious for you? Did it to the point where you were suicidal? Did you attempt that before people were aware, or did you ever get to that point?
I attempted before my parents were aware, but obviously it didn't succeed because I'm here right now.
Goodness.
Yeah, which is good. But then I think my mum took it more seriously, and I said to her, look, Mum, I've tried to kill myself. It's not me doing it for a fad. It's not me doing it for attention. It's not that I'm feeling stressed or worried about anything at school. I'm not being bullied. It is the case of, I need to change this in my life, or I am going to end up one way or another. I'm going to end up dead. Now
tell me about the community you grew up with. It's quite a conservative place.
Yeah, I grew up in rural backwater Devon. Not backwater. It's a lovely, beautiful place, but it's it's a conservative safe seat. There's nothing wrong with, like, vote how you want, whatever. But it's a Tory safe seat. It's very, very traditional, very white, middle-class Christian, that kind of thing. I think I was the only queer person at my school, that kind of stuff. I think there was one other lesbian girl, and she was really badly bullied for it. It wasn't, like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's where I grew up and that kind of thing, but it was so kind of out there that when I came out, instantly everyone in the town that we lived in, and then the next village over, and everyone was like, it's that one. And it was that kind of thing. It's one of those towns, and like one of those, well, it's not a town where I live, it's a village, but it's one of those villages where you can do something at the top of the street, and by the time you got to the bottom, the shopkeeper knows.
That's hard.
Yeah.
So when you actually went through tell me about the medical process then. At what age did it kick in? I presume you had a big conversation with your parents before all this.
Basically, the way it works in the UK is that you get referred from your GP to something called a gender clinic. I think there are 3 at present and 1 for kids in London. You get referred to one of those. They will do a full psychological evaluation of you to make sure that it's not anything else that's in the background. It's not a result of trauma. It's not anything like that. For a lot of, like 99.9% of trans people, it's just, we are this person. And they just want to make sure you're going to be okay, because transitioning is a long, hard process with a lot of stuff that comes with it. Went through that. They were like, you've got nothing apart from depression and anxiety, which is caused by your gender stuff. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
They do that. And then you have 3 appointments with a doctor. Mine was Dr. John Dean. He's like the trans guru of the UK. He knows everything there is to know about everything. And then you get a referral for hormones, which for me was testosterone. For trans women, it will be estrogen, and for non-binary people, it will be whatever ones they need to take to get them to where they need to be. Which to start with was an injection. I'd have it every 3 months. But due to a recent blood illness I've been diagnosed with, I've moved on to gels, which is you put them on your thighs every morning. It's really complicated, and I've actually forgotten to do it today, so I've got them in my bag to do it in a bit.
Oh dear, yeah.
Because I'm a disaster with taking medication, but that's just who I am. So that happened. Obviously, I started testosterone, and like it's basically a second puberty is how it works. So it kind of counteracts everything that happens in the first one. So my body fat redistributes, my hips and that kind of disappeared, and it sort of moved up into like beer belly, which I now have.
Well done, you didn't even have to work for that.
Exactly. Body hair increases, your muscle mass increases, your voice deepens, all that kind of the natural male puberty happens. There's actually like a lot of face shape like no one warned me about my face shape. Like I got like under there is a jawline, and cheekbones, it all harshens up.
What about the psychological effect of the hormones?
Okay, the hormones have made me a little bit angrier, but I think it's just I was like an angry person anyway, so it just made me even more angry. It makes the thing they say about men and thinking about sex near constantly is entirely true. Like since like before I was just like, I'm not really interested, I don't really care, and now I'm like it's all that, like it's just a constant thing. And
so us women need to be a bit more sympathetic with men who forget stuff and who are not very concentrating, and because that's what they're preoccupied.
My memory has just been shot to absolute shit since starting testosterone. I can walk into a room and just go, nope, no idea what I'm doing here. It's really weird, because no one warned me that would happen to my mind, and it's not like a full change of brain, and it hasn't changed who I am as a person and what I like and what I enjoy, but it's just made the way my brain works slightly differently. Because like I wasn't that analytical and such before. It's so weird because there's not theoretically a difference in brains between men and women, but they say there's a difference in how they work and what areas work. Yeah. And I think they've actually done studies where they've scanned the brains of transgender women and found that they work with those areas more than they work with men's before transition, which is really interesting. Yeah. So that was going back to where we were. A year after starting hormones, I had my top surgery, which was a full double mastectomy.
To have surgery is such a big thing in anybody's life.
Yeah.
So to have elective surgery, you've gone through that. Surely there was some thought process before that, or did you get to the point where you were so desperate to lose your breasts as such that you didn't even think about the surgery?
I did think about it a lot. It's one of those things that, because you know that you have like the set date in the medical, and I'd had all the medical testing, and I was kind of like in the car on the way back, I was like, am I doing the right thing? Is this what I'm meant to be doing? And I kind of like talked out with my mum, and I did like a prayer a lot. I'm a little bit religious, so I like prayed a bit and was like, is this the right thing? And I kind of got it in my mind that it was the right thing, because obviously before everything I'd like self-harmed a lot, and my chest was a lot of scars and that kind of thing, and I was like, no, this is clearly what I need to be happy in who I am. Right. Then got down there, got knocked out, had the whole thing. Woke up, I kind of looked down, and I was in a lot of pain on quite a few opiate, but like painkillers. And I was just sat going, what happened? And my mum turned up and was like, oh, good, like fussing over me and all this stuff. And I think the psychological side of it kicked in a few weeks afterwards when I was led on my sofa, because obviously you have 6 weeks recovery time, because it's a big. I've got massive scars across my chest now, because it literally just they kind of go cut out. Sew back up. So it was kind of it was afterwards when I was like kind of like sat there watching the scars heal up, and I was like, I'm gonna have these on my body for the rest of my life. Am I okay with that? but my quality of life since then has just improved so much that it was worth the initial kind of, any surgery is a trauma, I think. Like my dad recently lost his thumb in a farm accident, and he's still dealing with the implications of that. I think it's 9 months later, he's still going, oh yeah, my thumb's not there. And I think any kind of surgery, no matter what it is traumatic, and you do have that initial setback. So I think it was more that surgical setback than anything more, I shouldn't have done this, kind of thing.
So for further surgery, are you interested in that, or are you just going, I'm quite happy now?
Yeah, for me at the moment, I'm comfortable enough in my body and who I am to be like, I don't really need the full-blown bottom surgery. I'm just like, I'm doing me, I'm chilling out, I'm seeing what life throws at me. I know for a lot of guys it's not that way and they do want the surgery, and that's cool, but for me personally it's okay because I don't know, I'm not going to recommend the YouTube videos of it because it's violent, massive surgery, but they basically take flesh from the forearm, kind of cut like however long you want it. This is such a weird conversation to have.
It is a kind of weird conversation.
But they kind of cut it however long you want it, and to put it on, you get like an implant goes in. They kind of it's kind of, they use it a lot for like kind of car accident kind of recovery and stuff like that as well. If a man gets injured in that way, they kind of sculpt it, stick it on, do that kind of thing. But for me, it was never really a.
But
thing.
also, you said earlier that you are interested in males.
Yeah.
So sexually, you're attracted to men. So therefore, if you then had the bottom surgery, you may be in a bit of a pickle then. Dare I say it?
Yeah.
You know, because it complicates things for you.
I mean, I guess it's just the same as, it's kind of that thing that, I'm probably not going to talk about like my entire sex life on the thing, but it's just that people will do in the bedroom what gets them off.
Yes,
so
exactly.
whatever happens. Like,
and I mean, I know this is a weird question, but what about later on? Because you still, if you remain female below, you have all the working equipment to produce a child if you wanted to. Yeah. But would you want to?
I don't know. I think that whole female below thing is it's my body, I'm male, so it's male below, but obviously on the medical records, I understand. Yes. I have a basic understanding of biology. I know I am genetically female. Yeah. So it's always that. But I think I'm having a hysterectomy soon because of the way testosterone interacts with the female reproductive system. It means I need to kind of have it out before it gets a bit nasty in there. But that will come when it comes. And frankly, I'm more worried about my deadlines next week right now than I am about that. So
I think you should be.
So obviously that will come out. And then after that, it's just whatever.
Would you say what you've done has improved the quality of your life?
Infinitely. Before, basically, it was a countdown to when I actually told myself off, which is a really depressing thing to say on a recording. But now I'm out doing things. I'm traveling. I'm now a up-and-coming performance poet. I'm doing all these things that I never thought I'd do because I was so closed off and like, this isn't who I am, that I'm doing so much more, and I'm living relationships properly and fully with like, now I understand who I am. I can go out into the world and be who I am and do what I want. And
would you, life, it'd be good to know, is there anything you could advise anybody who's in a similar situation to you but haven't gone through what you've, I'd say, haven't been on the journey yet?
To anyone out there who's just questioning anything, really just explore those avenues and see where it takes you. Talk to people about it. Don't let yourself be kind of closed off and not kind of thinking about the stuff that, if basically you need to do whatever in life makes you happy, no matter what it takes. I'd say be more patient with your family than you'd want to be. I know it sucks when people are like she, her all the time, or he or they, like, or whatever things they do to you. But a lot of the time, your parents do want you to live your best self. They just don't understand it. And I'm one of those people. I obviously come from a place of kind of like, I'm white, I'm middle class, I'm all these kind of things. I have those kind of like privileges in my life that I don't have to question a lot of stuff. But I think people are not 90%, but a good 60% of the time, a lot of people's ignorance and insult tends to come from a place of not wanting to intentionally hurt someone, but from being ignorant and misunderstanding something. And I think there's a lot more room in the world to be forgiving and kind and say, look, you've done this, but this is the implication of that, and you need to understand why that's wrong, than there is to instantly shut someone down and be like, they're a bad person. And it's that kind of, just kind of go out there and live your life as best you can and forgive people more, because they generally, like with trans stuff, if you've never been trans, you are never going to understand how it works.
So within, you were saying growing up in Devon, you didn't have a community around you who understood what you were about at all. So that community was online, I presume.
Yeah, I found a lot of friends online through kind of going online and being on places like Twitter and Tumblr, being like, who else out there is trans? And kind of typing it in and being like, someone out there. And then people reply and be like, yeah, hi, are you okay? And I think the internet has a lot of power for good because it brings people together who would have never have met in real life. Well, real life, I say like they're still out there living their real life, but it brings people together and it gives you the chance to communicate across boundaries that you wouldn't ever see yourself having with people who are living same experiences to you, and you can kind of look at them and go, oh, okay, you're doing that too, and it's okay to do that as well. So
do you think it fuels things as well as reassures you?
I'd say it's mostly a reassurance thing. I wouldn't say it fuels, I don't know. I'm trying to fuels. No, I think it's definitely a reassurance.
As in it propels you maybe into...
I'd say there is a bit of a kind of instant, I'm this, I must do this, I need to get these things instantly. Like I've met a lot of people who have gone, I'm trans, I need testosterone tomorrow. And it's that you actually, through the counselling, you learn a lot and you develop a lot as well. Obviously not that medical transition is for everyone. I've got a lot of trans friends who are just like, I don't want to medically transition yet. I want to do this, I want to do that. Or it's not that my body is wrong, it's the way other people see my body that's wrong, and that's counteracting that. And I think for me, medical transition worked, and learning about it online helped me towards that. I think sometimes going online and seeing medical transition can make people go, not quite for me, but I'm still a guy. And it's that I think it does fuel things sometimes, but it's mostly a learning and understanding place that it comes from. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
My name's Connor, and I look like a man in a wig. More specifically, from head to toe, I'm wearing 6-inch heels, full body fishnet, a mesh skirt, a black crop top, and a giant blonde wig with a blunt cut fringe, and a full face of makeup, obviously.
And some amazing glitter.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. To hide the depression, obviously. And the sleepless nights.
So how long do you take putting your makeup on in the morning then?
So this is embarrassing. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. Yeah.
That is embarrassing. You didn't wake up at 4 a.m. to put your makeup on?
No, I woke up at 4 a.m. just in general. It just happened. And then I was like, oh, well, I can't sleep anyway, so I might as well do something.
So you could have arrived as a boy today or as a woman. I didn't know what way you were going to turn up.
Well, my gender identity is non-conforming, which basically means from day to day I can dress and act or express myself in any possible way.
I have to say, I would have been quite disappointed if you showed up as Connor the boy.
A little boring blonde looking.
Yeah. So what height are you normally?
I normally am 5'11", and now I'm about 6'5".
Wow.
Yeah, the wig and the heels add to it. And
so it is a kind of look at me.
I suppose that it's also kind of a mask. It's kind of a bit of confidence, because behind all this, obviously it's me, but putting this mask in between me and other people allows me to, hi, this is me, I'm here. Welcome to this.
Well, you certainly are. It's me, I'm here. Now, that can invite some very positive reactions, I'm sure, because it's very dramatic and it's fun, and you look at you and you go, wow, look at you. Yeah. But it equally, I'm sure, invites negativity.
Of course.
Describe that to me.
As with anything that people don't understand, or sorry, not to assume everyone doesn't understand, but people who haven't experienced it before might not understand what I am or what I do. I guess anyone who isn't in the normal category of being born as a male and then presenting as a male all their lives and being straight isn't, I guess, normal in the words of other people.
I just want to kind of take it back to the very first time I saw you. Mm-hmm. I was sitting in a room full of about 200 students. Mm. And you were this face that stood out amongst the crowd as the only male dressed as a woman in the room.
Indeed.
There was one black face and there was your face and your wig and your makeup. And I I'm short-sighted, but I could still see you halfway down the room. And I thought, my goodness, who is this person? That was my initial reaction. Who is this person? How amazing. I have never seen that before. And I thought, my initial response was, this person is so brave. Now, do you feel you have to be brave in order to do what you do?
Yes. In the comfort of your own home, it's fine. You can wear makeup and express yourself, but then walking out onto the street and presenting as something that's not traditionally accepted is extremely scary. Well, not anymore because I've done it for so long. It's been probably 3 years that I've been doing this.
So tell me about the very first time you dressed as a woman.
So the very first time was actually a drag show. I have some friends back in Hebden Bridge, where I live originally, that are trans girls, drag queens, performance artists, and they were having a party to celebrate someone's birthday, and I thought that's the perfect opportunity to be with people who are going to accept me for the way I dress, the way I act, the way I express myself, and that was it. It clicked. That day when I went out was the moment I was just like, this is so cool. This is brilliant. I don't care what other people think. This is what I want to do.
And were you already dressing as a woman at home?
Yes, yeah. It was more of a personal expression because I enjoyed makeup to start with, which was my way of expressing myself, as well as filmmaking. But my passion was makeup.
So in your family home, you have a couple of siblings?
I have my younger sister.
Yeah.
That lives in my home at the moment, yeah, with my mum.
Okay. And so when, I presume you were dressing up in your room?
Yes.
Did you come downstairs? At what age did you first come downstairs in your,
It would probably be when I turned 18, and it was me as an adult, so I could choose what I was doing and how I was going out. Because at that point, it wouldn't be okay for my mum to say something like, "Oh, you wouldn't be able to leave the house like that. You're not allowed to do that," because I'm an adult and I can make my own choices. I'm not.
So before then, are you saying that you never appeared in front of your mum or your sister dressed as a girl?
No, but I don't think that was because I couldn't. It was more the fact that I didn't realise that was part of me at that time.
Oh, okay.
Just because I'd never seen anyone else or expressed other people, met other people who had expressed themselves like that before.
So before that time, what identity did you have in terms of gender or sexuality?
To start with, I identified as a gay male, and that's it. That was it. And that was obviously, now that's quite well accepted. You see gay men everywhere on the TV, here, there, everywhere, and it's fine. People are usually, 90% of the people are quite accepting of that because it's well known, it's something that people are used to. Whereas once I started dressing like this and discovered that I wasn't gay, I was actually pansexual, which I don't know if we talked about that earlier.
Well, explain how you understand pansexuality to be.
My understanding of pansexuality is the idea of being able to be attracted to anyone as long as you're attracted to them as a person. So it doesn't matter about the gender, how they express themselves. It's just if you fall in love with someone, that's it.
So it isn't relevant what kind of genitals they have or
not. I've dated people who are trans girls, trans guys, biological girls, and people who are non-conforming. That makes me sound like I've gone through everyone, but it just happened.
It makes your life sound very exciting compared to mine, that's for sure. Yeah, the breadth of what you can do is fantastic. The range is out there.
Well, yeah, being as someone who presents as both male, female, and is attracted to most genders is a concept that blows people's mind. But
well, it does in the sense that we're kind of locked in potentially if you see your world like that. Although I don't, I live my life the way I want to live my life. But I think for a lot of people, that would be almost an affront because it's like going to, a little nice shop, on your local high street where you can buy your vegetables or your meat or whatever. But you're in this hypermarket of incredible choice. So
Amazon.
you can either say, you're Amazon. Yeah. You're you could say you're greedy or you're very lucky or whatever.
I'm just greedy as a personality, but some people would, say.
So tell me about the environment you grew up in then and the area and stuff.
So I grew up in Hebden Bridge mainly, and in Hebden Bridge it's well known for being an extremely liberal place to live. There's all walks of life, everyone's accepted. It's kind of like a big community, really. And there's obviously some people in that community that don't accept it, but it's 90% of the people there are extremely liberal. So I found that it was very easy to express myself the way I wanted. I've never had people who've been like, you can't do this, you can't do that. And if they have, I've just gone, well, I am, so deal with it.
Yeah. So since you've moved and you're now in the sort of West Country, what has the attitude been, or have you seen a change?
It's a lot more scary, I would say, because it's a lot. The city Bath is a lot bigger. It's in size.
So how do you brave that? I mean, do you just ignore people, or what do you do when someone hurls abuse at you from across the street? Or
I would say I'm very confident in myself now. I didn't used to be, but I'm confident in myself enough now to just keep strutting down the street and just keep walking. Sometimes I'll even, if people shout things at me, sometimes I have the surprise approach of shouting things back just to surprise them. They think, oh, you wouldn't expect someone like that to fight back, but they do, like a little chihuahua. And it surprises a lot of people. But my defence mechanism is comedy, so I use that sometimes to people. For example, if I'm in a club, and people come up to me, they'll say something to me like, "Oh, are you a tranny?" And then I'll say, "No, I'm actually a dude in a dress." And they're just like, they don't know what to say after that. So I've got them. They can't come back at me. It's just.
So have you ever had anybody really being horribly abusive and wouldn't let it go?
Sure. I have had 2 people. This was quite recently, actually. I was in Lidl, not promoting Lidl, sorry. And I was.
You were in one of those supermarkets.
Sorry, I was in an unbranded supermarket buying unbranded products, and I overheard 2 men saying, "Oh, look at that guy in that dress over there. We're gonna wait outside for him." Blah 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 blah. In my 6-inch heels, I scuttled into the back room into security and I said, "Excuse me, you're going to have to help me. There's 2 men waiting outside, twice my size. They're saying that they're going to basically beat me up. Please, can you help me?" And the security guard walked me out.
Fantastic.
He said, "Come here, love, give me your arm." Got me in his arm, walked me out.
Wow.
Straight past them. It was amazing.
And what did the 2 guys do then?
They
just stared.
The shock on the face. It was just, they didn't expect someone.
Well, I mean, you do. So for every kind of bigoted person, you also get people who are really just embracing, and they don't.
People you wouldn't expect. Like, when I identified as a gay male, my dad was a bodybuilder, a big macho man, but the softest person you'll ever meet, like kind-hearted, liberal, lovely person. And he actually asked me if I was gay. I didn't come out to him. He just asked me. And he was just like, "Give us a hug then, it's fine." The most amazing reaction, but from someone you wouldn't, looking at them visually, you wouldn't expect it, but so loving and brilliant. It was amazing.
And how about your mum?
My mum, same thing. She's very, very loving, very, very caring. Yeah, I can talk to my dad more about it, which is something you don't normally expect, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So since you started dressing up and going, so your mum or your dad might not know who you're going to show up as on any given day. Yeah. Do they ever go, "Oh, that doesn't suit you"?
Well, my mum's seen the side of me with the makeup and the femininity and the things like that, but my dad's not seen that side of it really. He's just seen the gay male side, but I'm sure, it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's already talked to me about drag, so I know he's fine with that, and this is pretty much what I do without the money, which is a bit upsetting.
Well, it struck me it must be quite expensive, or women's clothes are cheaper anyway, aren't they?
Well, you can buy a wig for like up to 150 quid, and that's just like cheapish.
Wow, that's expensive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this wig was this is my favourite wig actually, and it was the cheapest. Yeah.
Wow. So it is like an expensive habit, dressing up as a woman.
Yeah, especially as a student, it's not great.
So when you literally, is it when you wake up in the morning and you go, well, today I just can't be bothered with the effort? Is it that? Or is it, I don't really feel like doing that today, or I just want to be a bloke today? Or
it's a bit of both, really. It can depend on, well, it's not to do with gender with me. I don't present, like, I don't see myself as a woman and I don't see myself as a guy. So I'm not transgender at all. I'm just non-binary. I just believe that I can dress how I want and express myself how I want. I wake up in the morning, I might think, oh, okay, I feel masculine today. I'm going to go out and present myself as male. Go to the shops, get some stuff. Or one day I might go, oh, I'm going to a club, I'm going to present myself as female. It really depends on how I feel.
And do you ever feel, actually, it's too much today, I'm feeling a bit vulnerable and I'm a bit knackered because I didn't get a good night's sleep, or I've got something to do that, do you ever feel it's too much of an effort because of maybe the reaction you're going to get?
Honestly, sometimes I've had a night out before where someone said something to me that's upset me as presenting this way, and then my reaction the next day will be to be sulky and just not present like that again for a week or so, just because I'm a bit butthurt by it, really. But then I think to myself, I shouldn't be like that. I should do the opposite. Be more confident, take it as a...
But it does take a certain amount of bottle to do it, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You don't know what's going to happen. There's stories on the news all the time about people being attacked and screamed at and blah, 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 and you just got to think it's something that happens, and you can't hide in your house, can you? You can't stay in your house and think, oh, something might happen to me, I can't do this. Because that'll defeat your happiness, and you won't have.
So if you felt defeated by it and felt threatened and decided not to dress as a woman on any occasion, do you think that would have an effect on you as a person, and how do you think you might respond to that?
Well, when I think about it, I think that would be a part of me that had been chipped away, so it wouldn't be the whole of me. Like, my friends know me as Connor as a boy, Connor as a girl, Connor as whatever in between. They don't just know me as Connor as a boy. So I suppose, my personality shifts all the time, so it'd be part of my personality that's just been chipped away.
So would you feel they won? Would it have a bad effect on you mentally, do you think?
I would say so, yeah, because I won't be able to be myself. Like, anyone who's told they can't be themselves. Like, do you like chocolate?
I love it.
If I said to you, you can never eat chocolate again,
that's
disgusting.
That would do my mental health actually quite a lot of damage if I didn't have chocolate. I mean that genuinely.
Exactly.
That
Even
is
little
my
things
fix.
like that. So imagine something that's such a massive part of my personality being like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I would never say, oh yeah, you're right, actually, I should not do this. I'd say, sorry about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to carry on.
And why should you even have to apologise?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is my thing. I think if you're not affecting anyone else, if you're not hurting anyone else, you do you, carry on, be happy.
Great.
Just as long as you're not affecting other people.
But in a funny sort of way, for whatever reason, you're almost holding a bizarre mirror up to people. I've used the word bizarre. That's not the right word, really. But you're holding a mirror up to people that can be, depending on the mindset that you're greeting, can be like a trigger, or it can be an affront. I don't know why.
That's true.
I'm kind of unsure why that would be.
I think it's people are afraid of things they don't know. That'll just know. But if I didn't understand something, I'd be a little bit cautious of it and try to understand it. But some people find it difficult to grasp the idea of things they don't understand because they're too scared to get involved.
I think because it challenges the way they think.
Exactly.
And
there's that as well.
That's what I mean by holding a mirror up.
I suppose if you've known something if you've been taught something all your life, boy is a boy, a girl is a girl, this is how you dress, this is how you act, and then you go into the world and see someone like me walking down the street, you're going to think, wait a minute, that's not what I know. What do I do now? And then people can react in different ways. They can take that and say, oh, you're so-and-so trying to take that off, you whatever, gay boy, blah, 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 blah. I'll take it on board and think, well, that's their opinion, fair enough. Not that I agree with it, but I would never say to someone, you're wrong, because I don't think that's fair either.
Tell me, have you a very positive thing that ever happened to you when you were dressed as a woman? What was the most amazing moment where you thought, oh my goodness, this is it? I
had a very, very nice experience quite recently when I moved to Bath, that a guy was attracted to me like this, and he said, you're absolutely stunning. We went all night, and then obviously it came to telling him that, sorry, I was born a guy, and he just looked me in the eyes and he went, and that's it, carried on. And that just gave me faith for the world in general. It was just so nice. And I wish more people were like that. But
well, let's live in hope.
Exactly, yeah.
The first time I met you, Kai, I used the word she. And you very politely came up to me afterwards and you said, please don't refer to me as a she, because I'm non-binary, gender fluid. Well, I think you said I'm transgender, actually, the first time. And you said, I like to be called a they or a them. And I remember my response at the time, because it's the very, very first time I had heard this as a concept at all. And I'm the age I am, middle-aged, with 2 kids who are teenagers. And I thought, oh my goodness, right, so this is new. So you said this to me, and I thought, I remember responding, I might make a mistake. I will try my best to remember. And forevermore, whenever we met and I said the she word, I'd always go, sorry, Kai, and you'd go, that's okay. Now, explain these pronouns, the they and the them, for those who don't understand this, because it was my ignorance that fueled this podcast in the first place.
So basically, using they them pronouns is something that not all non-binary people do, but it is something that a lot do because they feel uncomfortable being gendered. It's the same as if you had a dead name, like a previous name before you transitioned. Being called that would make you associate with those feelings of not being who you know you are. And I think for a lot of people it was really hard to accept. My mum still struggles because she is always like, they is a plural. And I'm like, did you ever go to English class? Because it isn't. It is a single and a plural.
But in popular use, they is a plural. And our general understanding is it is a plural. So it's quite confusing. But equally, you're telling us that actually it's more confusing for you to be called one gender or another. So you'd rather be pluralized, if you want to put it like that. Is that true, or am I totally off the mark here?
For instance, like if you saw someone in the street and you weren't sure of their gender, people would usually say they're so attractive, or they do this, and they're talking about one person, but because they're unsure of which pronoun to use, they would use they.
Okay.
So the reason that non-binary people often use they is because it's a good alternative. There aren't, and it is an alternative that people do use even for people that use he and she pronouns. Not in older generations as much, because I guess it just isn't as well known. But I think that it's not exactly difficult to think about. Like, once you start doing it, practice makes perfect, Same when people change their name. And I also think that even if you disagree with the idea that you need to use a different pronoun, you should never impose your idea on someone. Like, if you want to associate with someone who uses they them pronouns, just use their pronouns, even if you don't understand it.
Yeah. And do you get cross with people who refer to you as a she?
I get cross if people refuse to use they.
Yes.
I have said many times before to people, I use they them pronouns, but if anyone is really struggling, I would rather you refer to me as he than she, because he is an acknowledgement that I'm trans, even though I don't associate myself as a boy.
You do associate.
I don't.
You don't.
I don't associate.
So
myself
what do you understand by the term transgender, non-binary?
So non-binary is the umbrella term for anything outside of male and female, and boy and girl. More specifically, I associate with the term gender fluid, which means that my gender identity fluidly changes between male, female, masculine, feminine, a mixture of those two, and an absence of those feelings on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. So you don't use the term transgender for you then?
I mean, I would, like, it would apply technically, but usually I would say non-binary because it's more specific. But I usually wouldn't say gender fluid because it's too specific.
Right.
And I don't, it doesn't matter if people know that, you know? Like, usually I wouldn't even tell, I'd just say I use they them.
Yeah. Because traditionally, I would have thought long ago that transgender meant you crossed into the other gender. But I'm obviously wrong. Am I?
Well, that's the big thing, is transgender just means different from what you were born. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going the whole way.
Okay.
There's a huge conception, even with people who understand transgender, that if you're transgender, it's black and white. You are a boy in a girl's body and you want to transition and you want to do all the surgeries, but that's not what people want to do. Surgery isn't for everyone, and some people are perfectly comfortable in their bodies but have an identity that they'd want people to acknowledge. For me, I'm perfectly comfortable in the body that I am in. I don't need my body to change for me to acknowledge that I'm not a woman. And I think it's thanks to the way I was brought up and thanks to the way that the world's been changing that I can feel comfortable. Because even with my body, I know that so many people I talk to, when I say that I'm non-binary, they say, okay.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned earlier about, seeing people as male or female. Like I've through the years seen lots of configurations of male and female. I would, it's inevitable that people in our heads will label people. Like if I saw you in the street, I might, in my previous labeling, say, well, she's probably a gay woman who's more butch than femme. Now, obviously, in this context, is that really offensive for me to say that now? Or is that, do you understand where I'm coming from?
I understand where you're coming from, but I think there's the problem with labeling in any kind is that it's not helpful, and also it's usually wrong.
It just seems more complicated and convoluted, maybe is a better term, than it was before.
I can see where that's coming from, but it's...
At the end of the day, what I always say to people is like, yeah, it is more complicated, but at the end of the day, being trans and having feelings of dysphoria are the types of things that cause people to have severe mental illness, can cause people to take their own lives. Like, this shouldn't be something that people are complaining about, saying, oh, it's just so complicated now. Like, people died because of these feelings. People
are still dying because of these feelings
because they can't express it. To be trapped and feel unable to be yourself is a completely suffocating feeling.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about this, that sometimes it's never good to assume gender at all, but sometimes you'll meet someone and you'll be like, you'll definitely think they are a certain pronoun, but it really takes 2 seconds to say, hey, can I get a pronoun check? Especially if you're unsure, or if you're too embarrassed to ask, just avoid using pronouns. You can always use their name, just a lot in a sentence.
Well, the fact is, the fact I would even have to stall myself and ask that question, it takes me back from the person.
Well, but for instance, I met Connor for the first time today, and one of the first things I said to him was, hey, could I get a pronoun check?
You see, that's a term I've never even heard before. Can I get a pronoun check?
Could I, what pronouns do you use?
Yeah.
It's one of the first things I said to you.
Yeah. It's common courtesy to me. It's is one of the first things I would say to someone unless I'd heard someone else say their pronoun.
But then you're assuming a certain knowledge from most people around you. Certain people above a certain age, to use the certain word again, basically it wouldn't have even come into our language. So for us who are older, it's confusing for us because we're going, oh, right, this is a whole new world. As much as the internet has been a whole new world, AI is a whole new world. You know, there's so many things being thrown at you. But that, in terms of gender, it seems almost like, and I know I'm going to offend you by saying this, is this just a bandwagon that people are getting on because the internet is there and people are going, oh, hey, that's really interesting. Why don't I try this?
I think there's a big problem with the idea of saying it's new, saying this new thing, because it isn't new. You know about it now, which is why it's new. It's like when you come out and everyone's like, shock. And you're like, it's not really that shocking. I've known for years. Like, they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. It's something that goes back years. People have been gender non-conforming. People like David Bowie and people in those sort of eras were playing with gender and gender non-conforming long before now. And going back into tribal eras, Native American Two-Spirit, lots of African tribes who didn't conform to male and female. The concepts of femininity and masculinity as we know them today are a colonial concept. They were enforced on people by colonialization, by the Catholic Church, by rigid ideas, by patriarchy, by the idea that you had to have a subjugated sex, even though we know that sex isn't even as rigid as that. Intersex people do exist.
I know they do, for sure. I've never met an intersex person, but
you may well have. You may
well
have met
very
someone who
true.
is intersex.
That's a very good point. Thank you. I'm very, very likely at this stage of my life might have. Yeah. So I'm really interested to know where your beginnings for all of this. You've grown up in a small town in America.
I have.
Describe where you came from.
So I came from a town of, I think my mother said we had about 15,000 people, which doesn't sound that small, but it's not all packed together like it is over here. Very, very spread out and also very close-knit community. You know, I was going to church from the time I was, before I was born. I was baptized in the same church that my parents and grandparents got married in. Very set in this is tradition, and I love tradition. And my family, I don't want to say they're conservative because they've always told me to be who I want to be, But we were Christian and we lived in America, and I remember very distinctly, actually, my mother doesn't remember this, but I do. One day when I must have been 5 or 6, I looked up at her and I said, Mom, can girls marry girls? And she said to me, in some states. But normally they don't want to. And I just left it at that.
She said normally.
And I just kind of left it at that because I was a child. Didn't really think about it. When I moved over here, things were suddenly very, very different. The place I came from, everyone knew everyone. We were a lot of upper middle class white Christians. If you knew someone who was homosexual, it would be they were that way, And everyone knew who they were and they were accepting of it, but it would be, so-and-so, our gay friends. And everyone was very happy with people being gay as long as it wasn't in their face. And it's still like that in the States a lot. A lot of people will say, I don't mind. People can do whatever they like, but I don't understand
privacy of their own.
But home. I don't understand why I have to be told about it. it was a lot more freeing when I came over here in that respect. To be fair, I was only 8. I didn't really have any sexual awakening at that age. I think I probably figured out that I wasn't straight about the time I was 12. And not because of my parents, because my parents are totally accepting. My mother has trouble with pronouns and things like that, especially with Kai. She loves Kai, but she'll go on the phone. She, he, they, them, they. And I'll be like, okay, Mom, at least she's trying. And I really, really appreciate that. It was difficult because kids in school paint other kids in a very certain light. And then my own conservative upbringing, well, again, not conservative, but straight-laced, I'll say, upbringing, sort of reinforced it, I guess. So people were more openly not upper-middle-class white Christians over here. But those people were singled out, not necessarily in a bad way, but they were singled out. And I'd spent the better part of my life trying to blend into the shadows because being the American was obvious enough.
I just find it so amazing that you're like, that you were so ready to jump on board when I like came out to you when we first met, when you'd never met a transgender person before. There'd been people, a non-binary person.
Well, I'd had a friend actually in high school who we'd been really, really close. And then when they came out as non-binary, we were still kind of close.
Okay.
And now they've actually come out as fully, they've fully transitioned. And we're still not that close, but I do appreciate what they taught me in that, because it did give me an awareness of, you know, pronouns and respecting that not everyone it's not all black and white. But until I met Kai, I didn't actually have any sense of self, did I? At all. I was so confused, and Kai just kind of dealt with that. And
yeah, when we first met, you were very much sort of like, I am a straight woman. And I was like, cool. You didn't pressure me into anything either. Like, a lot of people seem to think that you make friends with someone who isn't straight or isn't cis, and you get sort of roped into the community. It's like some of our friends say, it's like
it's catching.
People say like, oh, it's catching, when really it's more that
you feel freer.
Like in our group of friends, most of us are queer in some way, and it's because some of our friends came into our friendship group with the knowledge that they were straight, and after meeting us felt able to explore that part of themselves. We have one friend who was very much said that they were heterosexual when we first met, and is now
with a girl,
just because she'd never thought about it before.
And it's actually spreading to other parts of my life, the American parts of my life. My own mother has told me, when I came out to her as bisexual, she did tell me, maybe we won't clue your grandmother in unless there's a wedding she needs to attend. And I
in your own.
Yeah. And I decided, that's fair enough. My grandmother's from a very different time than my own. I don't want to shock her, anything like that. But actually, I've become a lot closer with one of my cousins, because about the same time we both came out, and it was very unifying. And she lives in the States, and she's actually also polyamorous, and she's only 16 at the moment. But it's very nice that we both have someone we can talk to and call whenever it feels a little pressurized, especially by things like, my mother has said to me, hey, I think you're going to realize you do want to be with a man and settle down and have a family.
But being with a woman doesn't preclude you from having a family, if
that's
what you want.
That's what we said.
Yeah. But you use the term bisexual, so is that what you currently think because things can change.
I'm fairly set in my in what I believe to be my own sexual identity.
I think sexuality is way less confusing than gender.
Oh, it's
like
tons
gender.
less confusing.
I'm always like, I don't know, maybe this term fits me better. Like, I don't know, it's such a weird feeling, but like, I was pretty sure of my sexuality for most of my life.
So would you identify as lesbian then?
Absolutely not.
No? Well, what would you call your sexuality then? I don't know.
For a start, I'm non-binary, so I can't be a lesbian because I'm not a woman.
Okay.
And I'm pansexual, which means attracted to people regardless of gender.
Whereas I'm attracted to... A lot of people think... We've had this talk before. A lot of people think bisexual means I'm attracted to men, I'm attracted to women. Singular woman.
Oh, singular woman.
But it doesn't. It means you're attracted to people of the same gender and other genders, and you do see their gender. It doesn't necessarily matter, but you do still see it.
It's about acknowledging... Bisexuality is about acknowledging this is a traditional female form.
Yes.
I'm attracted to it. This is a traditional male form. I'm also attracted to it. Whereas pansexual is like, don't really care what you've got underneath your clothes. Just be nice to me and I'll probably like you.
I mean, if I really had a problem with gender, I think I'd get in trouble with my boyfriend.
I think you might.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that is really interesting. I'm just looking down to see what else I was going... Oh, yeah. Kai, apparently, there's something about bathrooms I have to ask you.
Well, being non-binary, there's usually only 2 bathrooms to go in, and some days going into a female bathroom will feel very horrible because I don't want to be labelled as a woman. But also being in a male bathroom can be very uncomfortable. Once I needed to go into the male bathroom, so my dad took me. And so we went into the bathroom together, and we were in London, and this dude came in and started like hurling abuse at us about how I wasn't allowed to be in the bathroom. And my dad luckily like looked after me and got me out of there. But like, I don't know, people are so hyped up about bathrooms these days. Like, we're really lucky because on our campus we have bathrooms that are specifically for...
The inclusive ones.
We have inclusive bathrooms that have the transgender symbol on that you can go in. We also have male and female bathrooms that are connected. So if you want to go into a male door and then go into the female bathroom, you can. And I think that so many people have a problem with it. But I just don't understand why it makes a difference who pees next to you.
I suppose the only reason there has been segregated loos is because men use urinals. So girls might not, if they identify as being a girl, they might not want to see that, you know.
But for instance...
But then for young males, they have to deal with that. You know, young male children.
You shouldn't ever, like, confront someone in a bathroom because you don't know their truth. For instance, I know someone who's intersex who appears female outwardly but has male genitalia. And for them, sometimes they want to use a male bathroom because it's easier. Yeah. And so when people are like, get out of my bathroom, they're like, yo, I need to use it. Like, if I was in a female bathroom and I saw someone I thought looked male, I wouldn't be like, how dare you be here? I'd be like, have fun peeing.
But that's because you are who you are and you're very open-minded about these things. But then for most people who've grown up in the traditional system where there's a male toilet and a female toilet, because things are now changing, and luckily they are changing to embrace whatever people want, you know, it is challenging their preconceptions. And over time, as new buildings are built, this is going to be the norm.
Yeah, it's amazing how much it's changed in just the last few years of me going places and them having like a bathroom that specifically says like, this is the mixed gendered bathroom. And I'm like, thank you. It's not so much for me because I'm very confident in myself now. But when I was like 14, going into a female bathroom felt like shit. It felt soul destroying.
Yeah, because you just didn't identify with that world.
Oh, it was just wrong.
You. And we'll have even been in town, won't we, Kai? And you'll say, I need to go to the bathroom. And I say, oh, well, we'll go in here. And you'll be like, I can't go in there. If you're having a really bad day, I can't go in there. And You'll be like,
it gave me such a complex about public
we
bathrooms.
need to go home. We need to go home now. Personally, where I'm from, most of my family don't know that I identify gender-wise as anything other than a girl, a woman. I tried to tell my mother about it once, and she said, back in my day, we just called you tomboys. And I wanted to explain the difference to her, but it's so hard to explain the difference to someone who doesn't know what it feels like to not be completely at home with your assigned gender. And I think as long as the people close to you are trying and doing their best and respecting who you are, that's really all you can ask. You're not going to be able to change the world, and especially the way things are in the States. We've talked about it. We'd like to go to the States in the summer, and I'm a little bit scared for you just because of how the politics are at the moment, because it can be dangerous. And seeing something bad happen to someone I love because of the way my country is would absolutely tear me apart.
And do you think the UK is more embracing of gender issues than it is in the States?
There are definitely places in America that are very, very liberal, very, very accepting. But the thing about England is that because it's so much smaller, you don't have to travel as much to get to a more accepting place. And also...
and it spreads.
Yeah, it spreads really quickly. And also, like, places where it isn't as accepting, like smaller towns and villages, just don't go there.
Even where I'm from, though, which is a fairly small place, someone who came out as non-binary actually in high school, a very, very brave human, and I didn't realize just how brave until very, very recently, is now, from what I understand, a fairly big name. They've been featured in London Fashion Week. They've got a very, very successful blog. They're living their best life. But in school, they were Marmite. People either loved them or they hated them. And you never knew which side to be on. And everyone was making these assumptions on this person based on how they dressed and how they looked, not on who they were as a person. And I just kind of stayed out of it. But it wasn't until I was battling with myself as a person that I realized how incredibly brave that was to just be yourself at that age.
I can't even imagine how hard it must have been. I consider myself endlessly lucky to have grown up in a place and with a family who, despite not being 100% accepting, they were never going to be the people that were going to hate anything about me. They might have been like, we don't understand, but they would never have, like, disowned me or anything. That it's just not who they are, and it's not what my city is. My city is just the place just full of accepting anything that you want to be or feel you are. There's a place that you can do it.
Which is Norwich.
Yeah.
The final thing I wanted to ask you is about platonic relationships that might have been affected by you coming out.
This was the biggest issue for me. I have 2 female best friends, and we are close as anything. And I came out to my parents first. That was, well, after you. And I was so concerned. I don't know why, because these are some of the best people I know in my entire life. But something in my brain was so concerned about them knowing. I was worried they would think that I'd been trying something on with them all these years, I guess. But they didn't think that, of course. Because all you can see when you realize it yourself is the fact that even though it meant nothing to you, you've changed with them before, you've had sleepovers, you've shared all your secrets with them, and you wonder where their mind is going to go. On the other hand, other platonic relationships have grown a lot stronger, like me and Kai.
Yeah. Like, we call each other QPB, queer platonic bro.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about being queer and understanding someone's, like, queerness that just brings you together. It's like having a sibling but like one that I'm not stuck with and love
like
anything.
I very comfortably call Kai my life partner.
All the time she'll be like, oh, when we raise our kids, and she means my kids with my partner, that she'll know.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah.
I fully expect us to get a little house in Norwich with a dog and, you know, your partner and maybe my partner. Early days yet. But so in that case, our relationship is a whole lot stronger. Because, but meh.
I think it's hard sometimes for people to understand, like, especially with the whole not being straight thing. When you have a friend, it's like when straight people will have a male friend and everyone will be like, oh, are you dating? And they're like, no, we're just friends. It's the same as like, because we're both attracted to the same gender and stuff, like my family and other friends will always be like, just why don't you just date?
People are always asking why we aren't in a relationship,
and we're like, we don't think about each other that way. And I think it's the same for women and men. Men and women can be friends. There's so much stress put on like attraction and this idea that men and women are different, which is just not true.
I know, and it's ludicrous to imagine that if you're a straight person that you're attracted to every person of the opposite sex, of course. So
and it's the same with gay people.
Yeah.
And I love these girls dearly, but I would never sleep with them.
No, thank you.
So is there anything you would like to add that we haven't covered, or any advice you'd like to give?
Just that don't be in denial about it.
Always be unapologetically yourself.
Even if it's not to other people. I'm not saying jump out of the closet head first. You know, you'll probably whack your head and get a concussion. It's more important to identify who you are as a person. If you're not ready to come out yet, that's fine. If you are, do it with a flash, a bang, or, you know, even to your mother over breakfast when she's asking if she thinks your brother's gay and you say, no, mom, wrong child.
I think a big thing as well is to understand that you don't need validation. It took me a long time to understand that I didn't need it to know who I was, and that there's always going to be people that do understand. Like, the world's changing all the time. There's places in the world that you're going to find where you will find a home where people will always accept you. It's always going to be hard. I don't think knowing who you are is ever going to get easier, no matter how perception and society changes. Even now, when I think about how hard it was for me growing up, I just think about how much harder it could have been. I hope that the schooling system will cotton on at some point and give us a sex education that includes identity, because knowing who you are is so important. Feeling like you're uncomfortable in your own skin is just awful. You're the number one authority on you. And if you know who you are, then it doesn't matter what other people think.
Fantastic. I don't think we can add anything else to that.